Coming up, from the first round of committee meetings in 2022, Newgrow recommended to provide organic waste services. Council inches closer to securing and naming the CBD cinema and Commonwealth Hotel operators, and TransLink bus services in the spotlight. It's Friday, February 11, 2022, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. On this show, highlights from the February round of Ipswich City Council standing committees held on February 10. An interesting report on the current and previous state of TransLink services in Ipswich was considered by the Growth, Infrastructure and Waste Committee. Public transport is a state responsibility, however, Council can certainly advocate on behalf of residents. Mayor Teresa Harding asked Council Officer James MacArthur what was the trigger for the report.
The trigger of the report was, we meet up with TransLink on a quarterly basis and we discuss all things public transport related. What triggered this report is years of frustrations with seeing bus services get funded and implemented. So we've never taken that step to look back in the past and to see how the network has evolved over the years. So this was the first time that we've completed that exercise, and it actually showed a few things which were concerning to us and concerning for the city. So that was the reason for doing the report. There was no action specifically to do this report within IGO or IGO PTAPE, which is our Public Transport Advocacy and Action Plan. But there are nexuses within all those plans.
Mayor Harding.
You've had some discussions with the State Department, and how have those discussions gone?
So we generally agree at an officer level as to what needs to be done, services that are required now, and they're in agreement too. It's just once it gets to that funding stage, so recommendations from TransLink go to a service delivery board, and projects get up. The decision gets made at that process. Historically, projects seem to get up if they have a political backing, or if there is already committed funding to that project. For example, in Ripley Valley, we have the 531 service, and there's a 5-year funding plan for the staged implementation of that.
Councillor Andrew Fechner added his support.
Yeah, I just want to speak in support of these recommendations and commend the council officers for the advocacy that they've achieved behind the scenes to date. Albeit futile at times. I think that this is a signal to us that we need to stand up and start advocating for better outcomes when it comes to accessibility to public transport across the LGA. And this paints a really clear picture of the state of affairs that currently exists in the LGA, and it's quite sad. As recently as Saturday, when Councillor Doyle and myself were at our community catch-ups at Redbank Plaza, there were individuals there complaining that they're unable to access a bus service, so they're having to lean on, family members because they can't afford the taxi or the Uber ride just to get to the shops. And it was a real inconvenience. This one particular woman has lived with a disability for a really long time, so her story really touched us, and it was heartening to be able to tell her that this report was coming to council to say that we're aware of the issue and we're prepared to stand on this platform and advocate for those residents.
Mayor Harding spoke about the last review of public transport in 2013.
I encourage the people of Ipswich. The last time there was a review was in 2013, and when I look at the notes on page 23, when that happened, only 12 people in Ipswich actually responded. So when the state government do come forth doing the review, I do encourage people to come forward and give their views and responses. It's going to be really important for our city that occurs as well.
The Governance and Transparency Committee voted to recommend that Council go ahead and award a $4.5 million 2 years and 3 month contract to Newgrow at Swanbank for the disposal of organic waste. The report gave a summary of what organic waste is. It is waste derived from material that was once living, excluding petroleum-based materials, and is one of the main waste streams that create significant greenhouse gas emissions. Organics like food and garden waste are a valuable resource that can be harnessed and returned to productive use, turned into compost to improve and fertilise soil, or rescued to provide food for people and animals. After a closed session of the committee, Mayor Teresa Harding asked Council Officer David McAllister about alternative suppliers for the service.
I guess my question is to you that in the marketplace, is there anywhere in South East Queensland that's doing investled composting?
Current operation at Yatala, run by Phoenix Energy. They did not tender in this process, so they were not part of the process. And my knowledge also says they're pretty much running at capacity already.
Right. So every compliant bid was open Winro?
Every compliant bid was assessed as per the process.
My other question is, noting the compliance issues that have happened in the past, what are you doing, what's the organisation doing to ensure that the operator performs, but also complies? What will you be doing?
So we have a strong key result area and key performance indicator matrix in our contract, and we will be managing very closely to that matrix in the contract. And we are acutely aware of their history and performance, and it definitely came into the tender assessment process. And so, as is always the case with individuals, we'll have a close eye on how they work, particularly around the timeframes that they've proposed to move to technologies and ensuring they're meeting what they've put forward as part of their process.
As far as I know, there's a number of non-compliances with that particular operator at the moment?
The operator operates under a temporary environmental plan from the state, so the state governs their environmental output, and the state is also holding them to very strict criteria to improve that situation, to which we sort of piggyback along on.
Council's not the only customer for this operator. Do you know what percentage Ipswich City Council is of the operator's business?
I think we are approximately 10 to 15% of total feedstock into the facility. You have other large feeds from, say, Brisbane Council, plus a large amount of commercial material coming in. They are also, through this process of their engagement with the state, actively reducing some of their liquid intake feed. And it's that liquid intake feed that actually is some of the very odorous materials. The organics process that we send to them is actually not a very odorous part of that mix.
Also from the report, currently the rate of recyclables recovered from landfilling is tracking at 23%. Come 2025, Council will need to increase its recycling rate by 50% to achieve the state recycling diversion targets, which represents a significant shift in material flows required. In alignment with Council's new resource recovery strategy, Ipswich City Council will seek to expand its core collection service to include FOGO bins for Ipswich residents during 2023 to 2024. Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee heard its regular update from the chair of the Retail Sub-Project Steering Committee, James Hepburn. Mayor Harding kicked off the questions, and there were no surprises with the first one.
Noting commercial and confidence details, but how are things progressing with both the cinema and the hotel leases?
I'll start with cinema. Things are going well. We have commenced the 3-month due diligence process, which started in early January. So we're a month into that now. Only 2 days ago, we agreed the heads of terms with the cinema operator, and they have confirmed this and that they have a board approval date coming towards the end of February. So this is good news. The legal documentation is out and being considered by both parties, and now the real lion's share of the work sits with both our project management and design teams, working with their project management and design teams to come up with the scope of works and start to agree who does what when it comes to the fit out. So I'd like to think that as we work our way through the process and thinking about the timescales leading into the end of financial year, that we'd be bringing something forward before that time period for consideration at council, perhaps a special meeting.
And the hotel?
Yeah, the hotel is going well. I think if we step back a couple of months, we looked at 3 different delivery routes, as it's quite a tricky build, and the hotel operator has a very large fit out that they'll be undertaking, and they wanted to have a lot of control over what that looked like. Only probably the last couple of weeks we've agreed that actually council will undertake the build, so we will act as developer in a very similar stance to the way we've built out Metro and Eats. At which point, when we've completed the base build, we'll then hand over to almost said the name, over to the Commonwealth Hotel operator, and they'll undertake their fit-out works.
And a reminder, as usual, you will find handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts, or play Ipswich Today from smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.